Hey, Mr. Shipes, seventh graders. This is Miss Tolbert, and I'm just making a quick video for you today to kind of review and share with you a little bit of the information that you had last week in class on learning about India and ancient India. You guys did your test about Mesopotamia and Egypt, and now we're moving on to India and learning about some of the ancient civilizations. From this part of the world. Now, one thing I want you to know is that a lot of the things you learned about Mesopotamia and Egypt, there's going to be a lot of similarities with India. So there's some concepts that are the same about all of these ancient civilizations, no matter what part of the world we're talking about. So I'll point some of those out to you. I am right here in your tech book with you. And I know that you guys looked at this screen earlier in the week. And one thing you noticed was that India has a couple of big rivers that are very important to all of the civilizations that are there. Just like the Nile River in Egypt, the rivers in India, one of these the River, and the other one is the Indus River. Both of those were very important to Indian civilization. Another important feature for India is the Himalayan mountains, which are on the northern border of India. And we'll talk more about those as we go. All around the bottom part of India is ocean. It's basically surrounded by the Indian Ocean. It's a peninsula that kind of sticks down into the Indian Ocean, kind of like Florida does for the United States, except it's much bigger than Florida. We're going to quickly check out this map, just showing us a quick image of India here. It says South Asia, but India is the part we see here in yellow. And we can see the Himalayan mountains kind of going across the top here. We can see I'm running my mouse along two of the main rivers, the Ganges rivers and the Indus rivers. And of course, just like in Egypt and just like in Mesopotamia with the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, this is where the ancient civilizations formed, was along the rivers, because that's where they were going to get their water source for growing crops. They were going to use the rivers for transportation, and just like we learned in our last unit as well, many times in the high altitudes of the mountains is where the rivers would be fed from. There would be snowfall up there. When the snow melts, it would melt and run down into the rivers, and then the rivers would have more water. So that's a concept you have really already learned about. Okay, let's look at our next section here. We're going to keep going. So this is what we talked about, mountains and water sources. We're going to keep going on from there. Just looking at all of the sections that you've looked at here. So the rivers and river valleys we know are very important for India. The two main rivers, the Indus rivers, which you can see right here, and then the Ganges rivers. There are probably some questions that Mr. Shipe had for you on the document that you could read and answer by looking at these two sections, but we know those two rivers are important. Sometimes India is called a subcontinent. It's not a full continent like the other continents, but it's almost big enough in some ways to be its own continent. So some people refer to it as a subcontinent. I'll keep going. So, the climate for India. India has something called monsoon winds and monsoon rains. So, this kind of creates a rainy season and a dry season. And obviously, we know that the rainy season is going to be better for planting crops, for growing crops. And in the dry season, they're going to need to make sure they have crops stored up to get through that time period. So they would do their planting around the time of the monsoons. People in these ancient civilizations would. And monsoons was when the rains would come. Okay, two important civilizations from the times of ancient India that you're learning about. First of all, I want you to look at the years here. In the textbook, it says we're talking about from 2600 to 1700 BCE. And this was the time that some of the ancient civilizations of India were formed and they were active. Um, of course, they were living near the rivers, like we said. One of the ancient civilizations, Harappa, we see it here. And I think you had this on one of your assignments from last week. Um, Archaeologists first found out about Harappa in 1921. There was fertile farmland during the monsoon rainy season, so there was a lot of agriculture going on there. Archaeologists pretty much think that they grew a lot of grain in this area. So in the middle of their city, they had something called a granary right here where my mouse is. And that is where they would keep all of the grain stored up, and they would be able to use it to feed the whole community, but also possibly trade it with other civilizations as well. Um, okay, let's look at the one other ancient civilization on our next screen right here. I believe it's pronounced Mohenjo-Daro. I might be saying it wrong, but that's my best right now. Mohenjo-Daro, another ancient civilization that was a part of ancient India. Okay, so anytime you have questions about these two ancient civilizations, you know where to look. This was an artifact that was found from during that time period. Um, so, yeah, that's it. I wanted to just give you guys a quick overview of what you learned about last week. And really, the most important concepts were the geography of India, the Himalayan mountains, the two rivers, and the fact that the ancient civilizations formed around these rivers. I'm sure you guys will get another video from me sometime in the near future. And I'll be visiting your class again soon so we can talk about your next test whenever it comes along. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.